Welcome to the second episode of Series 68, everyone. In today's episode, we are finishing up our amazing people weapons for Life on the Edge with our guest, Maso Perez. But before we get into it, I am here by myself in the end caps of the show, as Amelia is under the weather currently. If you want, you can send some well wishes her way on our Discord at discord.charactercreationcast.com. I'm sure she would appreciate that. For now, though, here's what to expect in our calls to action. After the show, we have a bit of exciting one-shot network news to share, along with our normal episode closer stuff. Like, did you know we had a YouTube podcast page? We do. We also have a Patreon and a bunch of wonderful supporters to thank. So until then, enjoy the show, everybody. On the last episode of Character Creation Cast, Maso was creating a person that can change into a standard longsword blade. Amelia was creating a person that can change into a necromantic energy whip. And I was creating a person that could change into a magical energy-infused gemstone that affixes to a wizard staff. We're picking up right where we left off last time. Enjoy.
All right, so we have them, which means that I'm using the blade sheet, and you guys are each going to use the energy sheet. Mm-hmm. So it's actually good in a way that I'm making a character alongside you guys, because the energy sheet is slightly different than some of the other weapons due to their specific form. Mm-hmm. So next up, we have the 2d6 roll, which is how do you feel about being a weapon? The reason that this exists is because in the primary setting, and presumably in other settings that you would put it in, people who transform into weapons are not uncommon, but they're also not common. It's kind of similar to being queer or neurodivergent, where it's something that's present everywhere, and like almost everybody knows at least one person, whether they realize it or not. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, it's still considered not the norm. Yeah, not the majority, not the norm. And as a result, sometimes characters can be like maligned for it, or there can be phobias associated with it. One of the characters in the game, for instance, his struggle is that he's perpetually unemployed because every time he gets a job, there'll be an incident where he transforms into his axe form for some reason, and it will like cause a customer or something to be scared of him.
Maybe they should make his job less stressful. Sounds like that's the problem. Sounds like corporate America is the problem. No.
So we roll 2d6s for this one and add them together to get the result. I've got an 8.
I also got an 8.
I got a 10.
All right. So we all have generally positive views of it. Us with the 8s, we generally like being a weapon, but we don't draw attention to it. We don't go around talking about how we're weapons to most people. And for you, Amelia, we have your weapon form tends to wow people, and you enjoy the attention.
Correct.
I mean, that makes sense.
It's interesting that the darkest, scariest weapon is the one that is the most proud. All right. So this question next is, what's your preferred way to tackle a challenge? Although different weapon types have preferences towards specific stats, at the same time, you can theoretically build a character with any stat being your majority stat and still get to the point where, like, you're perfectly fine playing that class. It's, again, because there's no risk of, like, death in the way that there is in, like, D&D and stuff, unless you want there to be. Usually, you don't have to worry about, like, failing a roll means I could lose my character forever, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So we like to build weapons that have weird combinations. So you roll a 1d6, And what this will give you is it will give you the stat or a special move for one of the results of what you should kind of try to focus your character around when you get to stat building, which is its own step later. I rolled a 6.
All right. I got 2. Find the path of least resistance and exploit it. Keen is your best stat. Your grace and precision.
And
with mine...
Oh, yeah. Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Amelia.
I was going to say, I got a 1. So face it head on and overwhelm it. Heft is your best stat.
All right. That is an interesting one for a whip to have. But since you're an energy whip, you can just blast right through stuff. With mine, it's change up your approach depending on the situation. Try to balance your stats instead of a best one.
Ooh.
Yeah. Which is actually really funny because I almost always lean towards playing versatile, balanced characters.
I love it.
Rather than specialized. So we're going to come back to the step of building our stats later, but just for the time being, the point of that is to kind of help us set up how we think about our characters and what they do, right? To solve their problems.
Okay.
Now we have what is one of the things your character is dealing with. This is the kind of core seed of our struggle. We can assume that if we were going to play these guys, they would be in a shorter campaign, so we can just roll 1. But if you want to roll more than 1, you're allowed, obviously. Okay. 2d6. I got an 11.
I got a 10 for mine.
I got 11 as well.
Oh, interesting. Okay. Well, remember, you can always choose a different one if you dislike, but on a 10, you deal with something most people deal with, but you feel particularly bad at it. So, as an example of what I meant when I kind of wrote this was that you could, for instance, have anxiety. And you know how you get that kind of common thing where you talk about, oh, I have social anxiety. I get nervous when I talk to people. And there's always some person with like no empathy who says something to the effect of, well, everybody feels that way. You just have to get over it, right?
Yeah.
That's generally what this prompt is supposed to refer to. But also, ideally, anything your brain evokes when you read the prompt is a valid interpretation, right? So it could be even something as simple as like, you're bad at hand-eye coordination, which matters if you're, a dungeoneer. But it can also mean something more deeply emotional than that.
Okay.
And then in the case of you, Amelia, you got a really unique one where it's whatever it is you're dealing with, you don't realize it's bothering you. Which it gives you the chance to... Normally, if we had an MC, a Master of Ceremonies, you could choose to pass this off to your GM. But another thing you can do is you can re-roll and go with that prompt and then just add the additional context that your character is oblivious of it.
Oh, okay.
Like,
yeah, I'm going to try that.
You're grieving somebody, but you don't realize that it's affecting you that much kind of thing.
Let's see here. I got an 8. You have a particular anxiety on a broad issue.
All right.
So like that. You're just...
So that could be...
I like the idea too that it's like it's so broad that like you just don't realize that like that's what the problem is.
Yeah. It could be feudalism.
Right.
If we're setting this in a medieval setting, like you could just be very like, why do we let nobles do all this?
It's true. Something about the way the world works is just not, I don't know.
Yeah.
It doesn't seem right.
Like, yeah, something is making your character maybe more venomous, maybe more upset about stuff, but you don't realize what it is yet. Yeah. And over the course of the game, we would probably, like, if I was MCing and I had that character, and I know we're doing a medieval game, then I'm going to make a lot of the world building based around nobles abusing their power.
Yeah. Yeah.
To help set that up for you to have that realization where you're like, oh my God, it's their fault.
Yeah. My broad anxiety is like, people don't wash their hands and now everybody has the plague. Wait, no. That's not particular to this timeline.
I think given that my character, given that my character is a versatile person, he's dealing with the lack of solid identity issue. Most people have some level of an anxiety about like, but I don't really feel like there's a specific me that people are seeing, right?
Yeah.
But he is especially stuck on that. Like, he truly does not feel like he has anything going for him, that he doesn't understand what people see in him.
Yeah.
You know? What are you thinking, Ryan?
I'm thinking like conflict resolution.
Of course you are.
That I know, right? I'm like, what can I pick for myself?
Ryan is the person that like always wants everybody to be happy. It has taken like you're getting better, but Ryan makes very conflict averse characters too. Like he does not like intra-party conflict, and so I just love the idea that you have a character that's like conflict averse.
Yeah,
makes me so happy.
That's something you gotta work on, right?
Exactly.
You're just like, why do we even have to fight in this dungeon? Like, we can't. But you know what? Let's just. Ryan would like to ignore all of the dungeons. He's like, oh, that's a hole in the ground. That's a bummer.
Well, see, and I think he or she or they, this character is like conflict averse, but like they're not bad at it. They just think they are.
Interesting.
I see. Yeah.
Like they can handle it, but they've got like they have to get through their head that they can get to it and do it. Right. So I think that's like opens them up for a kind of like a story arc of, can I get past
learning
this?
To be comfortable in your discomfort?
Yeah.
As the prompt put it, you feel particularly bad at it, but it's up to the player to determine whether you're actually bad at it or it's just a feeling the character is struggling with. All right. And then we go to the next page, and we are on one of the more fun ones, which is, what is your relationship with each of the other PCs? So the way I've worked out this question, because generally it's really good about like everybody gets a connection as long as you do it this way. Every one of us rolls on this once, and we pick one other person, preferably someone who doesn't already have a link quickly to somebody else. But we pick one other person, and we both have that relationship, right?
Okay.
And then that will form a little web between the three of us of my relationship to Ryan, Ryan's relationship to you, your relationship to me, but they're always like reciprocated that way, right?
Yep.
Okay.
You can obviously flavor them as unreciprocated if you want to, but I think for the purpose of this, let's assume reciprocation until we get into it.
Awesome.
Okay.
Another 2d6. I got a 4.
Right. I got a 3.
Okay. And I got a 6.
Okay.
Rough. This group is not well formed yet.
It looks like it's going from lower to higher, like actively bad relationships to like amazingly good relationships.
So we have Sorry, did you want to read it off?
Yeah. So for 6, the best relationship we have is both of you knew about each other, but only met and spent time together when the group formed. It's like very vague sort of relationship there.
Yeah, it could be coworkers. It could be that you were like family members who just hadn't ever really connected. It could be that it's more of a like, oh yeah, I know Ryan. Ryan gets mentioned all the time in Amelia's stories, right?
Yeah,
but I've never actually met the guy.
Yeah.
There's
this the quintessential met in a tavern relationship?
Some guy that lives down the street,
less, right?
I guess. Like,
I know that there's another guy going in the dungeons regularly, but I don't really know anything about him. Kind of vibe, right? Yeah. That could be one of it.
Okay.
And then for mine, 4 is you are a bit afraid of each other, finding your personalities incompatible.
And then mine is, you are involved in one of their struggles and or they are involved in one of yours, and it's created resentment.
Ooh.
Gasp. What was your struggle again, Amelia?
I am dealing with anxiety on a broad issue, but I don't know that I'm dealing with it. I don't know it's a problem.
Yeah. So that's interesting because it could mean that depending on how we do the relationship, it could be that one of us made the other feel anxious about the subject, right? So like, for instance, if I made my guy the local like nobleman's son or something who can transform into a longsword, it could be that I might not have even like meant to do anything, but you just had spent time with me before and seen how unfair my life is compared to yours. and that's bred a resentment towards me.
Yeah.
And then my character realized that from yours and has bred a resentment in turn towards you because you're giving them bad energy, right?
Right.
Yeah.
But I'm just like, there's something like I don't know that that's what the problem is. I'm just like, there's something about you that I just really don't like.
I just don't like that guy. You know what I mean?
I don't know.
So we have to nominate somebody else for each. And judging based on what I've heard about the other characters so far, I think that Amelia and I would be good for my prompt of us being kind of incompatible and a bit afraid of each other. If only because like you're just extremely like harsh and blunt and direct, and you're also very proud of your weapon form. Whereas I try to be very adaptive and very like calm, and I don't really seem to understand who I am yet.
Yeah.
Whatever my character is. So that leads to a thing where I feel like those two are kind of naturally incompatible.
Yes. I love that.
So that could be the little line we draw from me to you.
Okay.
Yeah.
So one of you would nominate me as your connection, and then the other one would nominate the other one.
Yeah.
And what was your struggle?
I wonder if
kind of conflict averse, right?
Conflict averse. Yeah. But like, I wonder if your prompt here would fit for our relationship. Where we kind of resent each other because of my conflict.
Well, that's what I was going to say, because like I'm
issues.
I'm really confident in my like my abilities, and like I like to show off, and then you being kind of conflict averse, I'm like, you're really dragging me down. You're like making this difficult. And so like I feel like there was a point where we had to like fight something together, and I was like, this is like just come on, let's go.
Yeah. And I also don't like drawing attention to being a weapon.
Right.
So like, but I like being a weapon.
Right.
So it's an interesting mix there, and
that feels really obnoxious to me.
Yeah. So what I'm thinking is a good seed for this. Then we're setting it in a kind of medieval setting, right? And we know at least one player wants to focus on kind of dissolving feudalism to some degree. And all of us are happy about being weapons. This sounds to me like prime location for a witch hunting game, but it's weapon hunting.
Oh.
All the regular non-weapon people kind of turning on weapons in a mass hysteria could be the catalyst for the game.
Those people are dangerous.
That's part of what drives us together.
Yeah. Yeah.
And a lot of the dungeons are born from their paranoia.
Yeah.
I love that.
But we still got to help them out.
We do. We got to clear those dungeons. We got to clear
those
dungeons.
Who else is going to clear those dungeons?
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to prove that they're wrong.
Yeah.
Which is why I'm very showy about
it.
Yeah.
So then that would mean that me and Ryan then would have the connection of we knew about each other, but we had never met until we're both thrown into a dungeon together, probably by an angry mob.
Right.
At this point. All right, cool. And then
I love this.
The next thing is
So I love this little story. I'm so excited about this. Okay.
Yeah. The next step is links. So we're all supposed to have at least one link related to our struggle, right? But you can take more. The game doesn't put a cap on how many links you typically have. So players can be, because every link is like a narrative tool for the MC. So even if it gives you a few more points to theoretically use, it also gives the MC more stuff to wield in the story, right? So we can all assume that we would all have a link to each other to some degree, right? At the very least, you two have a link that would be like rank 1 and would be considered kind of a negative link at the beginning, right? But you do have a relationship. And me and Amelia would probably have one, and me and Ryan probably not, right? We probably want to establish that link in the future in game.
Yep.
But we could also all take an NPC link. So I think I do kind of like the idea of maybe making it like, I like the idea that me and Amelia are incompatible, and that could even come down to like upbringing maybe.
Right.
So I think rather than my character being the son of a nobleman or the daughter of a nobleman or whatever, I'm going to make them the illegitimate child of a priest.
Spicy.
And that, like, that might lead to special treatment in the witch hunt, but also one that my character would resent.
Yeah.
Right? Like, maybe the local priest isn't going to come down as hard on me because they know I'm their kid. But then also, we technically have blackmail against the priest.
Yeah.
And it's an interesting situation. But also, I would be raised somewhat religious because somebody who sleeps with a priest is probably somebody with a really close relationship to a priest.
Right.
So my character might be a little bit on the wrong side of things at the beginning.
Yes.
That makes sense.
So mine would be a link with my father, probably.
Okay.
Who is the priest, and I'm going to roll to see how that relationship is doing, because that's what this roll determines.
Yeah.
So in this case, he was of no help or support to me and does not consider himself responsible even indirectly for my struggles.
Of course not.
So
that makes sense.
Yeah.
That makes sense. Like, historically speaking, like, I did nothing wrong. That's what you...
I didn't do that.
These women are
It's not my fault.
whores.
So my
John Knox
NPC link,
I'm
I
going to call him
rolled
the
a
father.
6. So this person was really key for my character. Without their help, I would have been lost, and they're helping you feel confident enough to face things.
Wow.
So I wonder.
It doesn't need to be a human.
Like-
it could be like a dog, even,
Yeah.
by the way.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wonder. Gosh, I mean, objects are kind of a big thing in this game. It feels like,
Yes.
and I wonder if it's like, because okay, so I turn into like effectively a wizard staff. So we've got this wizardry like aspect to my character already. What if it's like a sentient book that like a sentient journal?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where as I journal in it
responds
helps
back.
me. It's basically a therapist.
Yeah, it's like a back and forth
journal,
conversation that you're.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
Right? I
that's
think that
fantastic.
sounds pretty cool.
I love that.
Yeah, I like that a lot.
It's your own little therapy journal.
Yeah, a little magical therapy journal.
Yeah.
Yeah. And since we're setting it in a medieval fantasy setting anyway, right?
Mhm.
We already know that there's sentient objects that we are. We already know there's ones in the dungeon. So why not have ones that are outside the dungeon that are positive as well, not just negative emotions?
Yeah.
Exactly.
All right, cool.
So I got a 3. They're a friend of yours and aware of the struggle, but unsure what to do about it. So originally I was thinking, like, I'd love to have like have there be like a group of sort of like
Scrappy.
like witches, like advocates for these, you know.
Like a coven.
Yes, yeah. But I also think, because like my weapon uses like a dark energy, and so I like the idea of them being like, I don't really know what to do with this one because it does have some like inherent darker qualities, whereas like the other ones, I could be like, it's just magic, it's not hurting anybody, it's not, you know, whereas like mine's like a little bit like, don't like that one so much.
The left-hand path.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm left-handed.
That's a term from occultism, if anybody doesn't know.
Oh.
Referring to like darker or more harmful magics is called the left-hand path.
That's perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I feel like it's like a group of like people that are sort of sympathetic to this, like to the weapons or whatever, but like, you know, mine is a little outside of that like comfort area.
We could call them the old mothers, maybe.
The what?
Sorry. The old mothers.
Ooh,
right?
Yeah.
Like a kind of vibe of like, if we're doing this as medieval fantasy and we're focusing on a witch hunts kind of thing, they could be like the people who have kept the old ways alive. So maybe not quite pagans, but like people who still like observe the spirits out in the woods and things like that.
Yeah.
And they're just like more elderly ladies or elderly people that have lived past the point where they care anymore about like hiding it.
Yeah.
And so they're the counterpart to the kind of church that we have in this town, where they're the people who advocate for us little weirdos.
Yeah.
but they're still a little bit afraid of you, is what you've decided, right?
Yeah.
They're kind of keeping a closer eye on you, and maybe that's why you have a stronger relationship with them than the rest of us.
Right. Yeah.
So
yeah,
that's
it's
good.
like they're friendly with me, but they don't know what to do with me, more or less. Like,
all right,
we like you, but you're a problem child.
Yeah. The last step is to determine what we call the vibe, right? This one is not a roll. You just pick. There's 3 columns, and the last column is mostly situated around modern styles, but a decent amount of it still applies to older stuff too. Like, obviously, goth punk is not necessarily a thing in real historical medieval times, but there's nothing to say we can't have a goth punk knight or something in our medieval fantasy, right?
Punk is a state of mind.
Exactly. Yep. So, like, typically we want to pick 1 or more from each column. So you can do the bare minimum of 3, but you can also grab more. Like, my boyfriend is just a big fan of, he'll usually grab like 2 or 3 from the middle column and only 1 from each of the others because he likes to describe his character's physicality a lot, right? So in terms of mine, I think I'm going to go with they are friendly. Not necessarily cheerful, but they are friendly. I'm going to give them rugged and tattooed. And then the final one that I would pick is flamboyant.
Ooh,
like,
love it.
Almost like the fact that it's such a like boring weapon, and the fact that they're so versatile and like good at everything, they're almost overcompensating visually with a lot of visual flair. So like bright red scarlet clothes and like, you know, like if anybody's actually dressed like a Shakespearean character, it's this
Love
person.
It. With full ruffle collar.
Exactly.
Okay, so I'm doing a little kind of a hack of this for myself. I'm rolling 3d6 minus 3, re-rolling 18, because there's 14 in each column, right?
Yes.
And so far I like what I'm getting. Honest and adventurous for the first column.
All right.
Makes sense.
Sounds pretty good.
With majestic hair.
I love that. Gotta love the wizard with the grand locks.
Amazing. Interesting. Surfer skater vibes.
Oh.
I mean,
you're just like a wizard, bro.
wizard bro. Laid back wizard.
I mean, you could give him like a robe and it could have like almost a Hawaiian print style, but like in a medieval way, like paisley. Like a full paisley thing, and he's just like, you just got to feel the weave, man. The way the magic moves around you,
bro. It's just the way things work, man.
I would like you to have like a water energy for your, because like, you know, we like talked about like, you know, so I feel like you have like a very like water like wave kind of vibe.
Oh yeah. I've got like this universe's equivalent of. Yeah.
Which I mean made sense because you know it's you and water and you know
I think in Elden Ring actually that's the flavor for intelligence based magic anyway too. They're big fans of like making it like cold water. That's how they make the magical energy work in that. So that's cool. And what about you, Amelia?
So I picked ambitious and diligent. And then I wanted freckles aplenty, so that's me. And then great bone structure. I just really like that one. Great bone structure. And then for the last one, I did pick goth/punk.
Amazing.
So, you know, I'm trying to decide like what that means. Like what a medieval punk looks like. Do you just wear like a lot of plaid? I don't know.
I mean, it could also be like the modern kind of dark leather medieval aesthetic, like the assassin, the cat suit.
Yep.
It could also be
spiky armor, leather armor.
Yeah, it's a lot of spikes and
like picture
spiky bits,
almost like picturing satanic-y imagery rather than specifically goth or punk, right?
Yes, but I do
'Cause
have
that's the equivalent of counterculture.
bright neon pink hair. That's important.
There you go.
Amazing.
You should have like bright neon pink hair, and then you have like semi-armored black clothes with like a skull pauldron.
Yeah, I'd love them to be like actual like medieval dress kind of thing, but like you've just like sewn like spikes and like, you know, like in play, you know, like all of your wrist cuffs and, you know.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's awesome.
That's amazing.
All right, cool. And that completes the character narrative prompt aspect of it. So we have a surfer wizard, we have a flamboyant, semi-boring longsword, and then we have a high goth witch whip creature going on over here.
Surfer wizard, hands down, has it. So that's
So good.
okay.
So that completes the narrative aspect, which I always like to try to make the first part of any given character creation so that we can inform the mechanics with it. We should probably name our characters, though, and
It's probably a
finish
good idea.
off whatever. I'm probably going to make my character based like off of me before I came out. So he, him, and we'll name him Diego. But Diego is unaware of the fact that he is queer and non-binary and things like that. He hasn't opened up yet to it. So I'll go with Diego, he, him.
Awesome.
And then maybe at a later point in the campaign, he would realize that he's not just a dude.
I left my name book in the other room, Ryan.
Oh, no.
I was like excited to like finally use the new version you got me.
Use your brand new version of the name book?
Like I have baby name books from when I named my kids. And so I love to use those for like our character creation and like all that kind of stuff. But one of them was like falling apart. Like the whole like middle section was like the pages fell out. And they put out a new edition every couple of years. So for Christmas, Ryan got me like the new edition of my favorite name book. But I left it in the other room.
Well, as strong as a vibe as you have, you could always go with the classic Lilith.
It's funny because I've been playing Borderlands again. And my son is playing Lilith in Borderlands right now because
amazing.
So I think that's probably the correct answer.
It is a good
very
name.
strong, evocative, countercultural name, especially when it comes to medieval Christianity.
Yes.
All right. And then for my wizard, gosh, I guess I can lean into the himbo vibes.
I love it.
I think you should give him a weirdly complicated sounding name, though. It would be so funny. Like his name is like Tlakiel, you know what I mean? Like you need to like have a specific accent to even say most of it. And then he has a short version where he's like,
Sly.
It's Kale. You just call me Kale.
Kale.
Yeah, Sly. Oh, is Sly short for something? Yeah, Vishleschlein. Like, you know what I mean?
Yep.
But you don't have to go with that. That was just what came to my mind.
I like when like the nickname is actually longer than his real name.
That's his wizard name.
Yeah.
What are you thinking, though, Ryan?
I do like the complex wizard name that condenses down to something.
You start with then you should start with that the condensed
version. Yeah.
What do you want
What's a
him
good
to be
surfer?
called?
What's a good surfer name?
Kaz. It's always 3 letters.
Yeah.
Kaz, Hal, Sly, Cam, Jack,
Ken.
Ken, Daz.
All right.
Dirk.
I'm going
Jim.
with Cal.
Okay.
Cal?
For short. Short for Califlaz.
Califlaz.
There you
All
go.
right.
Califlaz. But you can call me Cal.
Perfect.
Is it with a K or a C?
A C. So it's like
One of the
California.
And then is it PH or F for Flaz?
Oh, that's a good. I chose F.
Mm.
Yeah, I'm going to go with F on there.
Yeah.
Because it's like the beginning of California, which is what I think of when I think of surfers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then LAZZ at the end.
2 Z's. Okay. Just correct that here.
All right.
And Califlaz uses any pronouns.
Okay.
Nice. He goes with the flow, one could say.
Just go with the flow, man. Whatever.
I actually originally speak a language that doesn't have pronouns.
It's really hard to say Califlaz over and over and over again. That's why you go by Cal, is because there are no pronouns in your language. And Califlaz is way too long to say over and over.
Uh-huh.
So, what's it called? Now we move on to the mechanical aspects of character creation. On page 11 of the rulebook, we're right into the stat array. And it's pretty straightforward. It's technically a point-buy system, but the way it works is that, like most Powered by the Apocalypse games, stats are just the bonus you get from them. You don't need to track a separate score that converts into a bonus. So as a result, the point buy is pretty straightforward. You just put the points wherever you like. Instead of us doing it where it's like this weird math equation, it's literally just when you finish making your stats, add them all together, and as long as they all equal +2 or less, if you want to have less, I've had people who like having weaker characters, then you're golden. So as long as you don't go over +2. So there's a few example arrays on that sheet. I'm going to go with, since I'm supposed to be balanced, I could go with 2 +1s and 2 zeros, but I usually like to still have one weakness of some kind. So I'm going to go with a -1 and 3 +1s.
Okay.
And I think my character is going to thus be bad at sting. Because to me, what's it called? The way that I've been describing the character so far, he just doesn't have that kind of like resoluteness, that awareness that he needs to really drive his point home, so to speak, which both refers to arguments, but also as his sword form. So as a result, he's got that heft, you know, he's still pretty strong. He's still pretty skilled. He's got a +1 in that too. And his core is there. He's got a good heart and people generally like him. But there's something a little off about him, and he doesn't quite seem to be fully aware of his own situation and the situations around him. So he's just a little bit like not all there mentally, you could say. He's not wise, a little bit foolish, that kind of thing. But yeah, that's my balanced array.
So yeah, heft is supposed to be my better stat.
Heft is your favorite stat.
Okay.
It doesn't necessarily mean it has to be the highest.
Oh, okay.
So like, if you have two different stats that are at +2, right? You can make heft one of them and sting another one, but it doesn't mean that suddenly, you know, like that invalidates the roll you made. It still means that your character is just as smart as she is strong, but she still prefers to use brute force most of the time.
Yes.
That kind of thing.
Okay.
We're never going to play, so you don't have to worry about optimization.
Okay, yeah,
but for anybody listening to this, if you do play as an energy weapon, they have a lot of sting-related moves. So it's good to have a decently high sting as an energy weapon. At least a 0 or a +1. You usually don't want your -1 in sting unless that's the whole point. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think I'll go with this then. So my character, let's see, was the find a path of least resistance and exploit it. So keen is my best stat. So I put +2 in keen. And then I thought they're kind of like an emotional core sort of character. So put +1 in core as well.
Yeah.
And then also they're a wizard, so they can do some cool stuff in combat. So +1 in stain. So that left me -2 in heft, which I think is hilarious for a himbo. So like, sure, I'm able to do magic and cool stuff, but like, you know, you don't want me on the front lines.
You're the himbo because you're underestimated, not because you're not actually smart. Your character is really smart and pretty charismatic, but people always underestimate him because of the way he talks.
Just so laid back about it all.
Yeah, she's just like, oh, who cares, man? Who cares? So everybody thinks that there's nothing going on there, but there's actually a ton.
Yeah.
Like you sit down with this person and just have a chill conversation, you'll get into like all sorts of like deep philosophy and like who knows what else, right?
Yeah.
The baggiest robe, and then it comes off and there's no muscle definition underneath.
Right.
They look huge in the in the robe.
Yep.
But then they take it off and they're like, hi.
Yeah. I put 1 in heft, nothing in keen, 1 in sting, nothing in core.
All right. Solid. No weaknesses, basically.
Yeah, just,
Because since it uses a 2d6 system, having a 0 in something means that you skew towards still succeeding most of the time.
Okay.
Mhm.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
You're more likely to succeed by just a hair.
Mm-hmm.
And then obviously each one increases that.
Yeah, I kind of felt like,
Mhm.
like my character likes to show off. So like I feel like I would be decent.
Mm-hmm. So in most games, we're going to have a what's it called? A break equal to our struggles in terms of how much, right?
Okay.
So we just want a break of 1. In some games, the MC might decide, like, I actually don't want you guys to start with a positive break stat because a positive break stat contributes to exploring the dungeon specifically.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, we would start with like a break of 1, and then each time it would increase, it would go break of 2, break of 3, etc. And if we picked up other struggles along the way, like I might take a struggle where if the father, my priest father, betrays me partway through the story, that betrayal becomes a struggle, and then my break will increase permanently by 1. But it wouldn't trigger like the break moves. Those only come from when the fear track fills, not when your break increases.
Gotcha.
Okay.
So we got that.
All right.
So we'll start with a break of 1, and then from here, if you haven't already written in your weapon concept, you should. I'll just put chivalric longsword to give it a little bit more oomph. And then from there, we take our next step in character creation, which is our edges, our flaws, and our ambit.
Okay.
So I am a longsword. I think it makes most sense for my ambit to be long.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I'm starting with. I'm going to start with long, baby.
Feels like mine would be reach, I think.
As a staff? Yeah, probably. The way I usually would... Oh, sorry. Go.
Because I'm not using it as a physical weapon.
Yeah.
I'm casting spells.
Mm-hmm.
And the further away you are, the more efficient I am at casting spells, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, the less
So
likely
it
it is
makes
to hit
sense to
back
be
on you.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. In terms of like the actual weapon length when it comes to striking, I usually try to explain it to people as if it's the same length or shorter than your arm, you're short. If it's longer than that, it's long. And if it is getting close to as tall as your character, it's a reach weapon.
Okay.
Or taller. So, like, I'm going with long because I'm a long sword, and that is longer than my arm, as well as it's a two-handed weapon. Most two-handed weapons are not going to be short. So that would be my ambit.
I'm torn on mine if it's long or reach.
I mean, you could also be short. Because there's also like whips like the Cat of Nine Tails, which is that really short one that they use to whip people's backs.
Yes, true.
So you could have like the scouring multiple strands short whip, or you could be a long whip that's more like, you know, a riding crop or something closer to like a shorter bullwhip, or you could have a full length bullwhip that's like 10 feet long or whatever, or longer, right?
Yeah.
I guess it depends on how much you want it to be. Like the image of one of us wielding you is like, are you swirling around us with a big crack, or are you picturing it more like repeated strikes kind of thing?
Yeah, I'm definitely picturing more like the swirling sort of like, you know, especially with like dark energy coming off of it. That feels...
Yeah, the flashy whip.
Yeah. So I don't know, maybe long.
Like that
so
vibe.
Then, that, I mean, yeah, long or reach. Either one would work for that.
Let's do reach. Why not?
Yeah, go for it.
And in terms of the ambit, if you're one step out of your ambit, you take disadvantage. And if you're 2 steps out, you can't do anything at all.
Okay.
So for you two with reach weapons, if I'm being the wielder and I'm dual wielding you guys, and anything gets into short ambit with us, we straight up can't attack it. we need to move out of the way and get back away, right?
Mhm.
But if something's in long range, we can still attack it. We just have disadvantage.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, that keeps the wielder more safe then. If you can back away and stay away from the conflict and still do damage, right?
True.
For sure. And then next we pick our edges. So for mine, I'm going to go ahead and pick quick and versatile. So the edges are listed on page 13. Each one has its own rule. That's where a lot of the complexity in the game comes from. And for my edge of quick, what that means is that like anybody using me can use sting instead of keen or when they're acting against enemies. So you can't substitute heft for sting, but if you're bad at keen, you can substitute sting for keen, right? It's supposed to represent that like it's so quick that it focuses more on your mental acuity than how fast you can actually move your hands, right?
Right.
To just kind of represent the leverage and things. And then versatile is because, again, I'm kind of more interested in this being a longsword that is form rather than like not substance more than style, and he has to find his style as the game goes on. So versatile gives me a second ambit, and I'm going to take the short ambit. So at least when you guys would be wielding me, you have 2 out of 3 of the ambits covered, and then the other weapon covers the last one. So anybody dual wielding me and one of you guys is just going to never be out of ambit. They can always attack with something.
Amazing. I am going to go with precise. So you can use keen to strike with me instead of the normal thing. And then forceful as well. Which sounds like you can knock enemies back from advancing and can knock bosses back 1 ambit. So to keep them at range without us having to move.
Solid. Really good choices.
I'm thinking...
Especially since you're playing it as a ranged weapon.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
I'm thinking flexible.
Makes sense.
And also...
That makes a lot of sense.
Messy.
Yeah. Those were the ones I was already thinking for you if you were getting stuck. Messy inflicts pain, which gives us a +1 to the next roll we make after any time Amelia's weapon form would strike. And then flexible allows her to reach around shields and defensive abilities that would usually block our way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very good and very scary. And then we got to pick a flaw. Now, if we were playing this campaign, one thing that we would have to deal with is the fact that if there's only 3 of us, that means that every boss fight we are dual wielding. So two-handed and paired are both banned completely in 3-player games because you straight up just can't use those.
Right.
Just can't.
The paired edge, by the way, is it requires the two-handed flaw, but if you take the two-handed flaw and the paired edge, then anytime you are fighting another weapon specifically, not a monster or something, but a weapon, if you're fighting another weapon or another person with a weapon and they don't have the paired thing, you get advantage. Because you can just block with one and hit with the other kind of thing, right? But we're banning those because we would have to, deal with what we have to deal with. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the grazing flaw. And what that means is that I, as in my weapon form, when you're wield me, I can't take the drive move. My character just straight up cannot damage bosses on his own in weapon form. You need to damage stuff for him. He can only open them to damage.
Got it.
He can't damage them himself. Also, for the record, the way I flavor my versatile short ambit thing is smashing people with the pommel.
I like it.
But anyway, so for me, that's grazing, which just means that, like, it's kind of a flaw, but it's also not quite a flaw in some degree, because even though I could increase my sting later, it means that I never need sting in weapon form, at least. So that's nice. It just means that as a wielder, I'm still going to be really bad at repositioning us, because that's what sting is used for in wielder form.
I think I'm going to choose loud for mine.
I like that.
Makes
Just
sense.
like
Which sounds...
flavor-wise, yeah.
Yeah, so like my magic is not quiet.
No.
It's not subtle. And it attracts more enemies during traversal.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Which can be a real hassle because what it means is that usually you can defeat a group of enemies in a single roll. But if you only get a partial success, one of the downsides is more are coming. And if they just keep coming, eventually, like, you need to stop fighting and move on to the next part of the dungeon before they show up, which basically means you always apply that, even if you get a full success. There's always more coming.
Oh, God.
Amazing. That's more experience. I'm perfect for, grinding out those EXP levels. I know.
It's not. We get experience from failing rolls in this system, not from fighting things.
I need this in like Final Fantasy or something like that.
Attracts more enemies.
Like traditional JRPG, attract more enemies when you attack enemies. Just so I can grind more.
There you go.
I'm trying to decide between clumsy and unstable.
So they work slightly differently. Clumsy means that you can't parry, which would make sense given you're a whip.
Right.
You can still block things, like you can still catch something on your body, but a parry obviously specifically refers to like a more finesse driven, like I have knocked your weapon away with my attack kind of thing, right? So like that would make sense as a whip, obviously, but you're also a magic whip. Right. So you being able to block and parry makes sense in the sense of you're a weird whip that's sentient. As for unstable, the way that one works is that your wielder cannot make the same dueling move twice in a row. So if I was wielding you, I could open something to get hit with like my preferred attack, right? I think it's called a beat. Let's say I'm trying to beat it open using your web form, and I succeed. And then you take a drive motion and knock it out, right? Then it would go back to me, and I want to beat again.
But you can't.
But I can't. Because I have to pull you back before I can do it again. Even if I'm dual wielding, I have to do that preparatory motion. So that creates an interesting limitation where you have to keep changing your tactics.
Yeah. And I feel like both of them make sense for whip. I think I want to do clumsy.
Okay.
Just because, especially as like a 3-person game, like, you need to be able to.
Yeah. Swap around.
Yeah, I'm going to go with clumsy.
Okay. So we have our flaws. We have our ambits. We have our edges. The last step is weapon moves. You have a huge list. All of them are pretty straightforward. Some of them come with a roll, which means they are a move in and of themselves that you can either take in tandem with a move in the game or instead of one of the standard moves in the game. Other ones will do stuff like add a tag to something. And then the most interesting or weird ones on them is that every weapon type has a single move called the fracture move. A fracture move is a move that always forces you to mark fear and allows you to roll break instead of something else. And if you succeed on it, it will give like huge returns, right? So like, for instance, if I take mine, it's called double-edged. The back end of your blade can be just as useful in combat, even if it's blunted. When you strike with the reverse of your true edge, you mark fear and can roll break instead of heft when making the strike move. If you gain 10 or more on this, your wielder can follow up with the assault move with advantage, even if they acted before you. Wow. So like in a typical like 4-person party, usually if Ryan's wielding me and he opens something up, right? Or just finished damaging something on the enemy or just finished repositioning, I could use that move. I could create an opening on the boss using my break, especially if my break has increased as I've been playing. And if I get a 10 or more, even though you just acted, Ryan, you could go again and get advantage.
Oh, nice.
And then in the case of you guys as energy weapons, your fracture move is one of the craziest ones because it's overdrive, I think is the name, right? Overburst.
Overburst, yep.
Yeah. So your energy just goes out of whack and blows up to incredible proportions. And when it does that, it says that until you damage the next trait on the boss, you can roll break for everything. So if you juice that break by having a lot of struggles or by increasing your break over time, you can throw that break as a bonus instead of your stats. And then at the end, though, once you damage that boss again, your break increases by 1 and you leave overburst.
Of course.
So it's a crazy ability, but it also can make your break go super high and broken self and all of that really quickly, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's pretty crazy too. But take it if it makes sense for your character, you know? When we were rolling to see which is our best stat, one of the results was take the fracture move, basically. To represent characters who are really bad at dealing with stuff in general.
Okay, so we, as energy weapons, start off with elemental attacks, and then we pick one more. And for elemental attacks, we have to pick an element, right?
Yes.
And it looks like each element gives us an edge.
Yeah. So the way that it works with the energy weapons is because you guys are a fundamentally different thing than all the other physical-based weapons, you do get kind of hamstrung into picking elemental attacks at first, but elemental attacks itself has a choice in it. So you still get to customize your own move. But yeah, each one gives an edge. So the flexible edge is straightforward, right? Which we know that Amelia is taking that one from elemental attacks, right?
Yeah. Well, I already had that one, though.
Yeah.
That was one of the ones that I picked.
Do you have an older version of the sheet or something? Did it say edges pick 2 and it said flexible up there?
Yeah. Oh, wait, no, I guess it didn't say flexible in that list. I picked it. I was looking at the book when I picked one, so...
Okay. Yeah, no, so,
so
they're specific for each weapon type.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
And then, so I'll have to pick a different one for the, pick 2 at the top.
Yeah, you could take... Well, you can still take messy, for sure.
Yeah.
But you take a different one, and then in elemental attacks, you could take the flexible edge, where...
So, what else?
You're getting around stuff. Whereas for you, since you're doing water, you can contextualize burn as instead of it being fire, it can just be blasts of water. Or zap could be cold water that stuns people, right?
Yeah, so I was going to go with burn because it gains the sweep edge, which just means that attacks affect wide areas or entire groups, an advantage on the brawl move. And yeah, I think it's like manipulating the water in the air to just create explosive concussive blasts or something like that, right?
Nice.
Just the ability to just really mess up people in various ways using water magic.
Awesome. And actually that'll help you a huge amount because brawl usually requires heft. So you have a -2, but you'll also have advantage.
Nice.
And when you're fighting bosses, if you have the sweep edge, you can target multiple of their traits at a time because bosses are made up of traits rather than health. And you have to break them one at a time. And so you can blast their whole body at once. But yeah, the firebolt was one of the ones I was mentioning for you, Ryan, because it's actually the only ranged attack in the game that doesn't require throwing a weapon.
Oh.
It just lets you shoot a firebolt by default, but you can also... recontextualize it as a blast of water or, like you said, a concussive blast, right?
Yeah. A lot of good ones in here, though.
I'm kind of looking at either lighter than a feather or paralytic nova.
You can always grab other ones later in theory, but yes, it's a tricky one to choose.
I feel like I just like paralytic nova because it just sounds cool. Like the other one is more, very clear mechanics. Yeah. This one's just I don't know, flavorful. I mean, obviously it has mechanics with it too, but it just, your energy seep deep into opponents and clenches them beyond comfort. I want to pick that one because it sounds cool.
I kind of want to go a little bit of crowd control as well, maybe. So I'm thinking maybe gravity wells.
Yeah.
Could be really interesting. So when my wielder rolls a 10+ on a brawl, beat, bind, or assault move, then a gravity well gets created that draws other enemies in or traits. Says toward you, but immediately putting them into your preferred ambit.
Like a whirlpool.
Which means that
it can pull them back as well.
Yep, like a whirlpool or like the water of the surrounding area is pushing everything that we want into where we need it.
Yeah.
Sounds pretty cool.
All right. I was going to take wide swings, but I want to drop that level of crowd control at first more on you, Ryan, to handle, and just maximize our utility. So I'm grabbing Heavy Heart, which is anytime you or your wielder score a 10+ on a roll, on a move, you gain the stun tag until the end of the scene or until the next boss's trait is destroyed in a duel. So in that case, it would mean that whenever we successfully inflict harm while the stun tag is going, the enemy can't inflict harm back on us if we get a partial success.
Nice.
Or a failure. They can do other stuff, but they can't do that.
Okay.
And then it's a little bit redundant, but I also took Murder Strike just because it's fun, and I specifically came up with that based off of longswords. But the premise of that one is that instead of using the sword like this, you use it like this and smash people with the back.
So you like hold on to the blade. Yeah. For people that can't see.
It's a real historical technique.
I love it.
That was used against armored opponents mainly. And it wasn't super common, but it was common enough. And basically what it is that if my wielder offers to instead hold me upside down, one-handed or two, I lose both of my normal edges, so I no longer am versatile and quick, but instead you get rend and stun. So stun, again, makes it that every time we smash them, they can't hurt us back. And rend means that against defensive traits, we have I think it's advantage, maybe? Let me see here. Rend. Oh no, it's rend is heft, can be used to make the drive move. Maybe I shouldn't take that, actually. I just realized. Because I can't use the drive move.
Well, that doesn't help.
All right, I'm swapping that. I will swap it for instead Gashing Cuts then.
There you go.
Which is that when we damage a boss's trait and the target is not yet defeated, then I can also eliminate one of the boss's moves, as in one of the ways that they can react to us.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Nice.
Did you make your choice, Amelia?
Yeah, I'm going to do the Paralytic Nova.
Nice. Very cool and very appropriate, I think.
Yeah, I liked it. It was nice and flavorful. Your energies seep deep into your opponents and clenches them beyond comfort. When you open a boss's trait to damage, they cannot use their abilities from that trait until it has been closed off from damage again.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
Yeah, so fundamentally, like I said before, the way it works is you create openings with one move and then you damage with another. So what happens is that if I'm being the MC, right, and you make a move to open one of the boss's traits, and then Ryan goes to damage it, and Ryan fails, I could make it that the boss responds by hurting you, or I could make it that the boss closes that opening and focuses on the defense, right? Usually if it's a partial success, the MC gets to do one thing, and if it's a full failure, they get to do two or a big thing, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
So like an easy example being that in one of the play tests, they were fighting a giant crab creature, and to damage its tough shell, they had to turn it over and flip it onto its belly. And whenever the opening would close, it would snap back onto its legs.
Oh, yeah.
And if they rolled a full failure, it might drop, and it might drop on top of you and like crush you on the way down and inflict some harm, right? So that was how that worked.
Nice.
Crushed by a giant turtle.
But yeah.
What a way to go.
But that more or less sums up our character creation.
Very nice.
I love this little team.
I like that.
They're so cute.
It's imagining these being dual wielded really tickles me.
Well, I mean, it means that Amelia gets to play Gandalf. Because then she gets a sword and a staff.
Yep.
And then I have to wield a whip and a staff, which is probably the weirdest combination.
I love that one. That it's like always like long range. I just like picture you like constantly backing up, being like to get further away.
No.
I like the thought though of like you could just take the gem off the staff and hold it in your hand, and it works the same way. The staff is purely ornamental.
I see.
Yeah, you could.
It feels like very lion tamer, like the chair and the whip and the like.
Yep, that's true.
Like you're just like poking, like you put the crystal in your pocket and you're just using the staff to like poke it back.
I like that. That's what my gravity wells does. Is it just pokes enemies back?
That's another thing, because the energy weapon doesn't even need to have necessarily a solid piece to it at all.
Right.
If you play like Dark Souls, it could be like the pyromancy flame, where it's just you hold a little fire in your hand whenever you're using it and shoot little blasts, right?
Yeah, I think I just affixed that. You affix that. The gem is me, but like the staff is just holding me.
The staff is your clothes.
Right.
Yeah.
Every time someone takes it off, you feel naked, but it still works fine.
But it's fine because whatever, man.
Whatever, man.
It's okay.
It's just...
I take the gem off the staff and drop the staff, and then when we defeat the guy and you turn back, you just nude.
Right,
the staff turns into your
You have to like go get your robe.
Come on.
Don't look.
Don't look. Amazing. So that's it. We're done with our characters and relationships and our weapons. That's I like this a lot.
I'm glad to hear it.
Cool.
All
right.
And we're going to fight the system.
Fight the system. I can't wait for the fanfic.
Yeah, when we get to the fanfic section, that's going to be great.
Especially since, like, I feel like with a game like this, if I was emceeing it, then definitely the players start off already in a dungeon, no choice made. You're just there. You've been thrown in by the angry mob or something, and the entire first dungeon is like the paranoia of the witch hunt. And as soon as you defeat that final boss, the village calms down for a while, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, until a new witch hunter shows up and, starts it all over.
And then the witch hunter themselves could be such a ball of negative energy that a dungeon forms around them and they're the final boss of their own dungeon. Because you don't need to be a foreign concept to become a boss. You can be an NPC becomes the boss of a dungeon.
Yeah.
They're just empowered by it.
Amazing.
So that was my game.
I love it.
It was so much fun.
Maso, thank you so much for joining us to talk about Life on the Edge and do our character creation. This was a blast. Like I love our little group. I'm so excited.
Little band of miscreants.
Yes.
It was great. It was a lot of fun.
Do you want to just remind everybody where they can find you, find this game, all of that?
I didn't even say that before, but yeah. So if you search Boyfriend Dungeon on itch.io or DriveThruRPG, you should be able to find it. And usually on social media, I use the username Trumoi, which is TRUMOI. It's the Basque word for thunder. But yeah, so Trumoi is usually what I use. So I'm Trumoi on itch.io. I'm that on Tumblr. I used to be that on Reddit, although I don't use Reddit much anymore. And otherwise, you would just find my stuff by checking out, Maso Perez. If you search it anywhere, you might be able to find me.
We'll put some links in the show notes. So people can look there in the show notes.
Well, well, thank you, Maso, and thank you to everybody for listening. Please join us on the next episode for our discussion block. Call to action.
Yeah, like that.
So I am really happy with how this series panned out. This game is phenomenal. It's very creative. Maso was a fantastic guest, and these characters that we came up with are just wild. And the thought of having to dual wield in any configuration of these characters is it just tickles me. It really is a game about relationships, but also using each other in battle in a very interesting strategic sort of way. So like I would be really interested to play this game. Next episode we get into some phenomenal fanfic, so hopefully you'll stick around to tune in for that, because it's something amazing. So before we let you go for the day, we do have some calls to action. First up, I wanted to give a heartfelt welcome to Dillin as the new host of the One Shot Podcast right here on the network. Dillin is a fantastic individual in the TTRPG community, and they are always a joy to listen to. You might know them as Super Dillin on most social media platforms. I'm really excited to be able to have this show alongside his take on One Shot, and perhaps we can even figure out some collaboration sometime soon to celebrate. Their first episode is up already on the One Shot podcast feed. They are playing I Have the High Ground with James D'Amato, previous host of the One Shot podcast. And what they are coming up with together is just remarkable. I highly recommend it. As for us over here, we've been getting some great engagement over on our YouTube page now that our new episodes are automatically posting over there as well. You can find that at youtube.charactercreationcast.com and help us out by subscribing to our feed and leaving some comments and maybe even liking some of your favorite episodes. That would be fantastic. Next up, we do have a robust Patreon offering as well. If you'd like physical rewards, just sign up for the $5 level or higher, and you can get some really cool swag like custom C3 dice from ChessX, a personalized thank you card written by Amelia, and a whole bunch more. You even get early release episodes, which would let you hear the rest of this amazing series and part of next month's series right now. If you go a bit higher to the $10 level, you get things like being able to join our Sticker of the Month Club, where Amelia designs a new sticker every month, and we send them out to our patrons at this level. If you sign up now, you'll also get every sticker we've produced so far that hasn't run out yet. And I believe that's all of them at this point. So it'd be a really good deal to get them before they are gone for good. In addition to all of that, we also love to thank our patrons every single episode, like I'm about to do right now, starting with Lieutenant and DJG, aka Tigranosaurus. Our deepest thanks to you. Eric Bonds and Daryl Holiday II, thanks for supporting our dreams. Many thanks to Shadim Cabal and the Shyest Barbarian. Benjamin Sweeney and Lorcan McInnes, thanks for your support. Rob Fletcher and Kevin Brown, you're the best. Thank you. We appreciate your support, Tentacle Duck and Cole McCallum. Thank you. Thanks to John Adamus and the quintessentially quiet Quail Quartet of the quietly questioning Qatar Queen quickly questing for quesadilla quarters. So glad to have you backing us. I got it in one. Carlos Salazar and Eric S., thank you for your continued support. Thank you to Ross Kinston and Ian Potmeyer. Your support brings us so much joy. Thank you. Sorigoth and Liam G., thanks for supporting our dreams. Brian Colm and Garden GM, we're happy to have you here with us. Thank you. Tom and Blue Kryptonite, thanks for believing in us. Danny and Nicole Trainer, thanks for your continued support. Liam Murray and Kenning, thank you so much. Brian Kurtz and Mark E. Fair, we're happy to have you here with us. Thank you. And Drew Owen, you rock. Thank you. And thank you to all of our future Patreon supporters. Your assistance is allowing us to afford to make this show. The more folks that join, the more we'll be able to do in the future. So head on over to patreon.com/charactercreationcast to join up right now. Another way to show your appreciation and support is to leave a rating or review on places like Apple Podcasts, Podchaser, Podcast Addict, Spotify, or Facebook. Every 5-star review helps us out and brings us a ton of joy. But we also will read them out here and thank you personally when we do get new reviews. Right now, we are all out of reviews, so if you leave one right now, it'll be at the top of the pile and you'll get yours read out very soon. That's all we have for today's episode. Stay tuned next week for the discussion portion of the series and to hear all about the amazing fanfic that we came up for these wonderful people weapons. Until then, take care, everyone. Stay safe, drink some water, keep giving yourself some me time, and keep making those amazing people. We'll see you next time. Character Creation Cast is a production of the One Shot Podcast Network and can be found online at www.charactercreationcast.com. Head to the website to get more information on our hosts, this show, and even our press kit. Character Creation Cast can also be found on Twitter and Blue Sky at CreationCast, or on our Discord server at discord.charactercreationcast.com. I'm one of your hosts, Ryan Bolter, and I can be found on Twitter and Blue Sky at Lord Neptune or online at lordneptune.com. Our other host, Amelia Antrim, can be found on Twitter and Blue Sky at Ginger Reckoning. Music for this episode is used with a Creative Commons license or with permission from the podcast they originated from. Further information can be found within the show notes. Our main theme music is Hero Remix by Steve Combs and is used with a Creative Commons license. This podcast is owned by us under Creative Commons. This episode was edited by Ryan Bolter. Further information for the game systems used and today's guests can also be found in the show notes. If you'd like to support our show, find us on Patreon. Get access to bonus episodes, exclusive merch, and much more at patreon.com/charactercreationcast. Thanks for joining us. And remember, we find that the best part of any role-playing game is character creation. So go out there and create some amazing people. We'll see you next time.